The 10 greatest athletes in NBA history. A few months back you may remember we looked at the best current athletes in the league, but when on the all-time list, only a couple of current players make it because we've seen that many great athletes throughout the course of NBA history. Getting right into it though, for honorable mentions, there's Dr. J and Dominique Wilkins. I mean, Julius Erving was ahead of his time, and for his size and having a 41-inch vertical, he was more agile and able to maneuver his body a lot better than he should have been, which was how he was able to hit his iconic layup and his historic dunk. While Dominique Wilkins had a 42-inch vertical leap and was able to combine that with some of the most powerful dunks of all time. And there was really nothing to measure his power or Dr. J's agility to put it into perspective, which is why we're saying that they're just honorable mentions. Now for the rest of this list, we're counting down from 10, with 1 being the most athletic player of all time, but the order isn't going to be exact or anything. Players are just going to be in a general area of where they should end up ranking. So keep that in mind. And for number 10, we have Dwight Howard. And we're obviously talking about Dwight before all the back surgery and everything took place, because after it, he's never been the same. Before it though, during that run he had from 2004 to 2012, we got to see some of the most insane feats of athleticism in NBA history. I mean, first off, he's been 6'11" and between 265 and 280 pounds throughout his career. And he could run up and down the court with anyone on fast breaks or getting back on defense. I mean, the coordination and body control at his size was something we had just never seen before, plus he was as strong as anyone in the league at the time. And of course could jump out of the gym. And we saw a lot of that in games when he would block shots to the 5th row or dunk on anyone. But it was all the dunk contests that he was in that really showed us the kind of athlete that he was and just how great he was all around for his size. Alright, not every dunk contest. I mean, really, what happened to Dwight Howard? Some people said it was the back surgery or whatever that changed him as a player, but no. Compared to who he was 10 years ago, this past dunk contest proves that he's just whack on and off the court. Number 9, Vince Carter. There were very few guys in the late 90s to early 2000s that were able to dunk like Vince did, and there was no one that could fly through the air, maneuver his body, and hit 360s and windmills like him. And it's safe to say that he was way ahead of his time in that aspect, because there's still only a handful of guys in the league today who can throw down like he was doing back then. Overall, he was a great athlete, but his 43-inch vertical was definitely the biggest thing that helped put him over the top as one of the greatest of all time. Oh, and let's not forget about his dunk completely over 7'2" Frederick Weiss in the Olympics. Number 8, Giannis. I mean, in my current best athletes in the NBA video, I didn't even include Giannis because my mindset was him being 7 feet tall and being able to do the things that he could didn't mean he was a freak athlete, it just meant that he was a freak of nature. But I'm seeing it differently now, and I'd say that he is in fact one of the greatest athletes of all time, and the most dominant player since Shaq. The man 7 feet tall with a 40-inch vertical can realistically guard every position and could almost play every position too. I mean, someone the size of some NBA centers shouldn't be able to sprint down full court in 3 or 4 dribbles and finish with a Euro step the way James Harden can. And let's not forget that these two dudes are the same person. No matter how hard some people work, not all athletes are able to make a transformation like this. And because he did, it played a huge part in him winning his MVP in 2019 and possibly winning his second if this season ever resumes. I mean, honestly, in the 2019 one, he didn't take many jump shots and only shot 25% from 3, so he won that MVP mainly just off of his freakish athleticism. Number 7, Shaq. It's without question that Shaq is easily one of the greatest athletes in NBA history. And if you're someone that thinks he was just a great player because he was big, then you're wrong. Because for him to be able to do the things that he could do at his size shouldn't have been possible. I mean, you look at his Orlando Magic days before he put on a lot of weight, and he not only still had the brute strength to bully players down low, but could also keep up with anyone running up and down the court. And I mean, he was on the Magic when he completely tore down those 2 backboards in a game and caused the league to reconstruct rims, backboards, and entire goals to prevent him from doing it again. And also, let's not forget, for a while he held the record for the highest vertical reach ever recorded in NBA history at 12 feet 5 inches. But then he put on a bunch of weight, putting him well over 300 pounds on the Lakers, and for the most part was still able to run up and down the court and keep up with everyone else while being a successful dominant player. And when he was in shape, it was a good thing because it made him that much more dominant and really still able to bully anyone on the court, and that's what made him truly unstoppable. I mean, a guy that size, over 300 pounds, shouldn't have been able to move around and jump and dunk like he did, and that's what made him an incredible athlete. It's just a shame that he wasn't in the best shape possible more often. Number Number 6, Nate Robinson. Usually the league's greatest athletes are able to turn that into all-time great NBA careers. That's not necessarily the case for Nate Robinson though, because he was only 5'9". And don't get me wrong, he did have a great career given his situation, but out of everyone in this video, he's had the least best career overall. But hey, for a 5'9" dude, I think he made the best out of his situation. He still holds the record for most slam dunk contest wins ever with 3 for doing things like dunking over Dwight Howard. And that and blocking Yao Ming have always been some of his better career moments. In terms of his in-game athleticism though, I've always compared Nate to the mini version of LeBron James. I mean, if the man was a foot taller, he would have been LeBron. He had a 44-inch vertical, was one of the quickest and fastest NBA players on the court at all times, making him one of the pound-for-pound best athletes that the league has ever seen. Number 5 belongs to quite possibly the pound-for-pound best athlete in league history in Russell Westbrook. And that's what he's been widely referred to as for a few years now. Many people have him as the best athlete in the league, but honestly, since we're looking at all-time athletes, Russ has to share this number 5 spot with prime Derrick Rose. Neither of their abilities truly show up on paper, but it's clear that nobody's as explosive as Russ, with the ability to either fly down the lane and dunk off of 1 foot in an instant, or either stop on a dime and pull up for a jump shot. While it's also clear that never in league history have we ever seen someone with the agility and body control that Derrick Rose had. I mean, he could bounce off defenders, fit through tight spaces, and create impossible angles to score whenever and however he needed to. Not even to mention he was nearly just as explosive as Russ and could dunk off of 2 feet like he was in 2K. And I will say that both men were pretty much equally as fast as each other, and they both had slightly different forms of athleticism. The only main difference between the two was that Russ's body could keep up with his, while Derrick's couldn't. Number 4, Zion Williamson. So here's the thing. In 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19, for the past 5 years, Russell Westbrook was picked as the NBA's best athlete in a survey of every league GM. And that's one of the reasons he made this list. But for the first time in 5 years, he wasn't picked as the best because the spot went to Zion, who was voted as the best athlete in the league with 41% of the votes. And I've talked about him as an athlete on the channel a lot, so I won't say too much more aside from the fact that depending on what we see him do with his athleticism throughout his career, he could possibly become the number 2 best athlete we've ever seen in the league when it's all said and done. Not number 1 though, because no one will ever take the number 1 spot, and you'll see why in a minute. For now though, number 3 and number 2, we also had to put them together, because I'm not making the decision for who's the better athlete between LeBron James and Michael Jordan. I will say I'm slightly leaning towards picking LeBron, but I think we're better off just keeping these guys together. I mean, LeBron is without a doubt bigger and stronger than MJ, while Jordan could jump much higher and had far better body control. LeBron's 6'8" and 260 his entire career, compared to Jordan's 6'6", 216, while Jordan has had a 48-inch vertical compared to LeBron's estimated 44-inch. With both of them, I'd say being about the same in terms of speed. Now, neither of them have any real athletic weaknesses, but each also has certain strengths that are much better than the other. So honestly, the argument's pretty even. So let's just take a look at each guy from a historical standpoint. There's never been anyone close to having the combination of size, speed, strength, and jumping ability like LeBron does. I mean, he was always one of the top players in the league in each of those categories, let alone all of them. And if you were to build an NBA player from scratch, it would probably look a lot like him. While for Michael, I mean, again, if you were told to make an NBA shooting guard from scratch, it would be Michael Jordan. We know how great Kobe Bryant was, but one of the things that set him apart from MJ was Jordan's vertical was 10 inches better than Bryant. And aside from that, he had a great combination of body control, agility, and speed that he needed to become the greatest player of all time. But neither man was the greatest athlete of all time, because without a question, number 1 goes to Wilt Chamberlain. And instead of just explaining to you why he's the best, I'm just gonna list off some facts. By the time Wilt was entering high school, he was already 6'10". In college at Kansas, they had a 12-foot hoop and Wilt would dunk on it regularly. But if that wasn't enough, it said that he used to be able to grab quarters off the top of the backboard, which was 13 feet off the ground. And he was able to do that thanks to him having what was reported to be between a 46 and 48-inch vertical. And if you don't believe that, here's a picture of him blocking another grown man's jump shot. The guy's at least 6 feet, and Wilt's got to be at least 4 feet above his head, which means his head is definitely above the rim here. He also used to back up to the 3-point 3-point line, take 2 or 3 steps, and would dunk all of his free throws until a rule was made against it. And multiple newspaper articles back that up. On top of that, he once broke another man's big toe because he dunked the ball so hard and it came down and hit him in the foot. And these are just a small amount of the on-court examples of how great of an athlete he was. And with all the stories out there, I could honestly go on for at least an hour, but we don't got that kind of time. I will say though that he was also one of the best track and field and volleyball players of his time. So without question, nobody comes near to rivaling Wilt Chamberlain. But comment what you thought on the rest of the list, or if you learned anything new, drop a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next video.